So without a doubt, nobody likes running out of space on your PS5. Fortunately, however, Sony did give us access to the internal M.2 slot after months of angry customers.
Oh, that's hot. That's hot.
But there is one slight problem. M.2 drives are super fast in nature, and anything that is super fast in nature requires some form of cooling solution. Okay, maybe not this one. In order to cool down M.2 drives, you're gonna need a heatsink which dissipates heat the same way heat transfers from a hot kettle to your hand when your mom tells you not to touch it. I just never listened. So originally I made a video on my favorite heatsink for my Sabrent Rocket M.2 SSD, but then all of a sudden Sabrent themselves came out and decided to join the party and release their own version of a heatsink. So what did I do? Well, in good nature, I always try to recommend the best stuff to you guys, so it only made sense for me to make a video testing this Sabrent heatsink, and also because they did send it out to me. And so I decided to give it a test, and so this is how it went. So my initial heatsink was purchased through Amazon from a company called Iyashikei. I think that's how you say it. It has a sandwich-like design and allows heat dissipation from both sides of the heatsink. And of course, it does fit my M.2 SSD exactly. I tested out the temperatures by playing Battlefield 2042 over a course of about an hour, while continuously testing the temperatures to see what the max temperature would be, as well as the average temperature. I tried my best to eliminate all variables, so I purposely played like trash to make things similar on both tests. When I was done, I swapped out the heatsink with the Sabrent Rocket Heatsink, and I repeated the exact same process. I played for about an hour and I tested out the temperatures to see what the max temperature would be, as well as the average temperature. And as you might notice, the Sabrent Rocket Heatsink is single-sided, but it spans the entire opening of the M.2 slot. So basically, it wouldn't matter what size M.2 you have, because this thing will fit. I mean, this thing was massive. Regardless though, I honestly did not expect to see any type of difference, because after all, I mean, it's a heatsink, and heatsinks, they do exactly the same thing, they just dissipate the heat. But boy, was I wrong. The Sabrent Rocket had an average temperature of 112 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 44 degrees Celsius for you plebs. I meant non-American folks out there watching this video. And the Iyashikei cooler had an average temperature of 124 degrees with a max temperature of 128 degrees, which is equivalent to about 53 degrees Celsius. So overall, it's about 10% cooler, which is kind of a big difference. Now, these are the only two heatsinks that I did test out for this video, because there are not that many heatsinks for the PS5 on the market today. In case you're wondering what the temperature would be like if I didn't have a heatsink on my M.2, well, keep wondering, because I'm not about to ruin my M.2 for the sake of a YouTube video. If you didn't know, when an M.2 reaches a certain temperature, Nah, I'm just kidding. What ends up happening is that once it reaches a certain temperature, it will start thermal throttling itself down, so you get reduced performance for that M.2. And then once it reaches a certain temperature, which I think it's like 85 degrees Celsius, I'm not 100% sure, don't quote me on this, but once it reaches a certain temperature, it will just shut itself off as a failsafe, so it doesn't corrupt any data, and it actually preserves the health of your M.2. This is actually the same way that your CPU or GPU would act whenever it got to a certain temperature within your computer. Also, do note that the only way I was able to conduct this test was that I had to leave the top shell on the PS5 removed, so that could have some impact on the results, but regardless, both tests did not have any top shell, so it wouldn't have mattered anyways. So should you just jump and buy a Sabrent Rocket heatsink? Well, not exactly. The thing about M.2s is that they either work or they don't. Once they reach a certain temperature, then they will start to thermal throttle, and then once it reaches a certain temperature that is far beyond that, then it will shut itself off. Other than that, I mean, both temperatures that you saw in today's video are well below both of those levels, so you're not going to see any type of thermal throttling with either of these two heat sinks or any type of potential shutdown. Even though the Sabrent Rocket didn't run noticeably cooler, that is not going to have any direct effect on your gameplay. It will not reduce the lag, it will not reduce the load time, and it will definitely not improve your aim, because, you know, that's just because you're trash, little Timmy. So overall, should you buy it? Well, I think you could buy it if you want to, or better yet, if you actually can get it, because heat sinks nowadays for the PS5s just come and go. Sometimes they're in stock, sometimes they're out of stock. I mean, the stock levels are all over the place. You might find one that you like only to find out that it's out of stock. So it's really a funny business with these heat sinks, man. I think that in the future, with more intensive PS5 games, there will definitely be demand for heat sinks that allow your M.2 SSD to run much cooler, but really it's just too early to tell. I made a video, which I'm gonna link up here, which basically tested the M.2 from Sabrent versus the internal drive on the PS5, and the difference is so unnoticeable. It just doesn't make any difference, and the main reason for that is that the games on the market today just don't require as much computing power as these drives do allow. So in the future, when games are much more asset intensive and have much more graphics and things to be processed, well, that is when you're gonna see the temperatures are definitely gonna go up on these M.2s, which will then require heat sinks that can dissipate a lot of that heat away from the drive. So with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Of course, if there's any new updates about these heat sinks or about any M.2 drives for the PS5, I'm gonna make sure that I come up with a follow-up video to follow up this video. And let me know what you guys think. If you guys have any questions whatsoever, let me know in the comment section down below. And of course, if you guys want to ask me, you can ask me directly on my stream, which is on YouTube, of course, where I pwn the noobs. I never play like trash, and you might win a few goodies if you join my stream at the right time. But anyways, guys, my name is Matthew. Thank you so much for watching, but as always, peace out.